100.
A resolution condemning President Trump's executive order banning people from Muslim-majority nations from entering the United States as unconstitutional, unlawful, and un-American.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
My mistake. I'll let you speak. You want to speak or you just want to be reported? Councilman?
I would like to say a few words. Thank you. I do not support the Muslim ban. I want to be clear. I don't think it's a good idea. However, I don't know that it's unconstitutional. There was a judge in Massachusetts, federal judge, who found that it was constitutional, one in Washington who was found that it was not constitutional. That issue is going to be resolved, hopefully, in a higher court. For that reason, I am not going to vote for this resolution.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're voting no. Let the record reflect that. Let the record reflect that Councilman O'Neill is voting no, and let the chair now recognizes Councilman Taubenberger.
I'd like to be very clear on this. I also will be voting no on this. To be very blunt, I will also say the fact that one, as Councilman O said, it's in the court system. Two, when you take a look at the countries that are listed, only one has a functioning government. So I think until the courts decree on this, I am voting no. Thank you very much.
And the record shall reflect that Councilman Taubenberger is voting no. Councilman Jones, can I do this? Since we're in the middle of the vote, we have taken a vote on ayes and nay. Can I conclude the vote and then you can be recognized to speak?
Mr. President.
Okay, so 170, 100, the ayes have it and it is adopted. Chair now recognizes Councilman Jones.
Mr. President, there's a question of constitutionality, and that will reside in the courts. But there's a question of right and wrong, and often history will reflect people justifying hiding behind a law book, hiding behind a question of who should decide. But right is right and wrong is wrong. And when we as a country, we don't do I am a proud citizen. But let the record reflect we didn't always get it right. We didn't get it right when we herded Native Americans onto reservations and doing that in an unjust manner. We were wrong again when we did internment camps for people who might have maybe been, because of the way they looked or the way they spoke, enemies of this country, many of whom's relatives died defending this country. So as we move into the current day and this administration, let us not hide behind constitutionality or the courts. They will decide that. But in these chambers, right is right and wrong is wrong, and let the record reflect that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. And the chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much. I have great respect for my colleague, Councilman Curtis Jones Jr., and I certainly understand where he comes and from where he comes, and I support that. However, somebody's right and somebody's wrong. That is kind of oftentimes subjective and different. I happen not to disagree with Councilman Curtis Jones. However, I do think that we have a process in this country of ours that at this time it is very important to adhere to. We have a separation of powers, federal government, state government, and local government. We have a separation of branches between the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. And I think that the details of this are such that while people may feel very strongly about certain issues, and while courts do get it wrong, so do legislatures and others. So I don't want to disagree with my colleague on the morality or the issues that he's saying. However, I will say that I do think that it is not a matter of hiding behind. It is a matter of clarity, that there is an issue of constitutionality that will be determined in the courts. I have my opinion, but likewise, for example, with our mayor, there are things about what the mayor does that I don't support, but I support the fact that he is the mayor. He was duly elected, and he should have an ability to make certain types of orders. But that'll be determined in the courts, and I'd rather these things be determined in the courts than a new trend about threatening folks you don't agree with cutting off their funds. One day it is one issue, the next day it's another issue. This trend can continue as we disagree with each other over right and wrong and have the moral high ground to defund folks we don't like. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I respect the opinions of my colleagues that raise the issue of constitutionality in reference to this issue and the executive order issued by the current occupant of Pennsylvania Avenue. However, my concern when you also look at the issue of constitutionality is some of the challenges in reference to freedom of religion in the executive order that is, to me, challenging the establishment clause of religion in the Constitution. When you have a ban in certain countries, those are majority Muslim countries, but also in that executive order you have certain preferences to other religions in the executive order. That's what causes the constitutionality perspective from my concern. And that's why I support this resolution. I can respect the issue that this should be debated in the court system, which it will be, but my concern is in reference to the establishment issue of religion in the executive order, which puts a preference on some religions over others.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Quiñones-Sánchez.
I wanted to put a silver lining in this. On Friday, I was joined by the mayor, Senator Sharif Street, and State Representative Jason Dawkins at the Muslim Society, one of the largest mosques in my district. And, you know, the message, it was an interfaith ceremony, and the message was one of unity, one of peace. And I think that one of the things that has happened with all of this is that people understand that we really have to come together at this particular time. But the most profound piece of that ceremony for me was the children in the room. The children in the room who the mayor addressed, who, when questioned by the press, said, "I feel safer today." Because the mayor said, and the police officers that have joined us at the ceremony have said that I am going to be safer. And so in our messaging, it's very important to recognize that people are fearful. People are scared, and as legislators and as leaders, we have to reassure folks that we're going to be okay. And we're going to be okay. And this has helped us enlighten folks about the value of what this nation was founded on. And so the silver lining is people are coming together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you again, Mr. President. And I'm going to give my colleague a hug soon as we leave these chambers. But on this floor, you're going to get it. So let me just say, I'm not clear. I didn't get the memo. Did Donald Trump read the Constitution since he was elected? I don't know. That was a question once before. But whether you are the president, which I respect his presidency, I'm here to say that. However, right is right and wrong is wrong. FDR, a Democrat, did internment camps and he was wrong. Ulysses S. Grant, March of Sorrows, or how they moved Native Americans, he was wrong. He was a Republican, by the way. And Donald Trump is equally wrong, even though he holds the office. The 5 countries he's banning, and he cites 9/11 as the reason, well, if that's true, why aren't we banning folk from Saudi Arabia? Because they have business interests with Donald Trump. And so the countries that he has, so there's at least a question in my mind. If it is not constitutionally right, it's damn sure self-serving. And so if you bring this up in this chamber, we're going to deal with it in this chamber. Because truth is truth, right, as you said, right is right and wrong is wrong. And I just want you to know that, you know, if he continues on his path, I'm not as optimistic. I am not as optimistic as my colleague Sanchez. Yes, it's bringing good people together, but it's causing divisions even in this council. And we have to be careful about, you know, just because the bully became the president of the student body doesn't make the bully and bullying right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes, excuse me, Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last night, we had a monthly meeting we do every second Wednesday, the Mayor's Commission on African and Caribbean Immigrant Affairs. And we talked about this whole issue for an hour and a half. And, you know, when 10 o'clock was approaching, we said we have to agree to have another meeting and give out info, but that we could not stay there all night and debate it. It's a real important issue. And I'm proud that my colleague introduced it and proud to support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair. No. Thank you very much.